Hey, it's your close personal friend, Lou Brutus here. And this time around, I am going to be speaking to my old friend, Jesse Leach of Killswitch Enagage. Now, primarily, we're going to be covering their latest album, Live at the Palladium, which was recorded at one of the coolest venues in their home area of New England. Then we're going to dive into the 20 years of their landmark album, Alive or Just Breathing. So let's do it.
I don't know much about the history of it other than there are definitely some lingering spirits apparently there, which I definitely could see how that would be part of the history. But yeah, I agree with you. It's home for us as a band. It's a venue I've been going to since before Killswitch, when I was going to, the hardcore metal festival, even with my band Nothing Stays Gold many years ago. And it's like a comfortable shoe. When you put it on, you're like, we're here, we're home. The crowd's always great, and the venue's great. It really is. And what I like about it too is you got the downstairs area, which everyone knows from the Killswitch Live DVD and from the World of Blaze DVD. But you also have the upstairs area, which is a smaller venue. I want to say about 300 capacity, and that's where Killswitch played our very first show ever, with Dark Tranquility, Shadows Fall, and it just holds a ton of history for metal and hardcore. Not to get all hippy dippy, but I think the vibe that's in that place and the vibe that's in a lot of old theaters, because of the performances, because of the energy, because of the drama, all the things that go into it, all the things that happen backstage. And when you're talking about theater and, actors and all that mixed with musicians, it's a lot of energy and a lot of history. And I find myself really drawn to that as well, because little do most people know, but before I ever got into music, I was really into theater. I was a theater kid when I was young, and I love acting. I love all that stuff, drama. So for me, it just feels like even more so of a comfortable place to be in when I'm in the theater, because that's where I stood on stage for the first time ever, was not with a microphone in a band, but to play a role in a play. So I love theaters. There's a vibe there. Well, when I was younger, I was an indoctrinated little Christian boy. So we used to do, I was in a private school because my parents made me go to private school. And I played the centurion that stabbed Jesus on the cross. That was my first role as a kid, getting to stab Jesus in the Christmas pageant. And from there on,
that's the quote of the year so far.
Yeah. And from there on, I went to do tons of stuff, including like weird psychedelic abstract stuff in my teen years through high school, doing a one-man comedy show when I was 10. I've definitely got my start there, and I love theater. And the great thing about theater kids were they were the freaks and geeks and weirdos. Before I knew what punk rock was, I was a theater kid. And then all the theater kids became punk rockers or metalheads or hardcore kids. It kind of was like the younger version of punk before I knew what punk was, because only the weird kids did theater. And I love that. I still love the weird kids. I'm still one. I've personally never experienced it, but I've heard stories of people seeing figures. When you're backstage and you look up on the stage, but in the rear of the stage, you look up, there are little window areas there where the dressing rooms are. And people have reported seeing figures staring down at the shows. There's been things that fell from the rafters. So I've heard stories. I've never caught a vibe there, and I've never personally experienced it, but there have been stories by people who work there that there's definitely entities present in that place. I think it was one of the songs that we all jammed on and just felt fun. It felt slightly different for us. And for me, topic wise, I think lyrically, every once in a while you get a Killswitch song that I write that has political leanings. But for the most part, my point of view with any sort of politics in general is just to be self-thinking, to be revolutionary minded. I am definitely not a left or a right type person. I don't have a platform with which I preach on or an agenda to push, except for think for yourself, dig deeper than what you're being told. Because if history has told us anything at all, is that we're being lied to on a regular basis. So you have to sift through the disinformation and lies to find what is a truth or a half truth, and then form hopefully an intelligent opinion on that based on wisdom and experience. and then you can sort of have a platform with which to speak. But I think that is ever shifting and ever changing. And we're so quick to call people enemy when the media tells us these people are our enemy, or these people are the terrorists, or so you're constantly being shown who the enemy is, when you have to ask yourself, who is the real enemy? Who is your real enemy? And that could be mainstream media. That could be even your own brain. I think there's a lot of ways you can interpret that song, but I think for the most part, lyrically at least, it's a song about being revolutionary minded, but also just sonically, it's a fun song. It rips. And Adam D wrote that main riff, and it's just got this sort of like, almost like a Pantera feel to it initially when he showed us that riff. And they were talking about changing. I'm like, no, keep it. It swings. It's got that swing to it. People nodding their heads. It's just a fun song, man. We're living through a very divisive age. Some may even say Orwellian. And I think that it's important to pay attention to all the things that are going on and try not to give in to the division that they're putting us in and arguing and bickering, because a lot of that to me is just a smokescreen for realizing the power we have as people when we're unified and we decide to stand up against certain injustices together. But, a nation divided is much easier to rule and to control. And that's where we are now. We're easily manipulated and controlled. And it's something I constantly fight against in my own mind, wanting to know the truth. And who knows what the truth is anymore these days? I don't know. I mean, everyone's got their reason. I think we're honestly just honored the fact that people still care about it. But if I were to venture a guess, or my opinion on it, I think it's just because it's real, it's raw, it's a band that we're on the cusp of something, and we didn't hold back. We didn't worry about what people were going to think about our sing-alongy chorus that we really loved. We just put out a record that we stood behind, and that really combined everything that was going on musically for us, everything we were inspired by, and everything we wanted to be. We really put out a record that I think was a projection of who we were to become without even knowing it. It just happened organically. And I think that's what happens when musicians come together and do their best. It sounds cheesy, but we literally put our best effort forth on that record, and it's genuine. And maybe that's why there's a lot of heart and soul in that record. I don't know if everybody was broke, but I was definitely broke. And we were just van and trailering it, doing weekend shows in the Northeast area, playing in front of, on a good night, 200 people, on an average night, about 50 people. And on a bad night, including the night that Mike Gitter, the A&R that signed us to Roadrunner Records for that record, we played in front of 10 people. It was us and Unearth, and we played in front of 10 people. And one of the 10 people was Mike Gitter, the guy who would sign us to Roadrunner Records, and eventually caused us to blow up and become who we were. But we were paying our dues and continued to pay dues, and those guys continued to pay dues even after I left. So when I was still in the band at that time, we were still a baby band. We were opening up for Hypocrisy. We're going on tours that didn't necessarily make sense to us. Paying dues for sure. And when I left the band, that was still a fairly small band. The buzz was there. People were talking about it, but our audiences were at best 300 people a night, Not really, honestly. Especially as I've gotten older, I feel like I like to tour a certain type of way, or I get uncomfortable. And, I didn't tour in a bus until I was with Times of Grace, just a few years before rejoining Killswitch. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite things in the world is crawling into my bunk and pulling that curtain closed, putting on headphones and shutting off the entire world. Because when you're constantly bombarded by people's energy, when you're always 2 to 3 feet from somebody else's loud, boisterous energy, or the smell of their farts and bad breath, there's nothing better than closing that curtain and shutting the world out and being able to go to sleep and take a nap wherever comfortably. Years of doing the van and trailer thing, as exciting as that was, and as adventurous as it was, when you could just pull off to the side of the road and check out a monument or go run through the desert on a day off, I wouldn't trade any of that for the comforts of being an old man and having the comforts of my precious bunk. I don't really have much memorabilia from anything in my life. And since I met my fiance, she puts up my, my Grammy nominations, and she makes sure to put stuff up and like posters and things that I might have lying around in a box, like you said. And she'll pull that box open and start hanging stuff. And I'll come home and like from tour and I'm like, whoa. She goes, yeah, you should be proud of this. You should be hanging it up. I'm like, all right, I guess so. But the rest of the guys, Adam's got everything framed all nice in his studio. You walk in his house, it's like a little museum of like cool stuff, and not just his records, but records he's produced. I do appreciate it, but I've never been one of those guys. And now that some of the stuff, I'm looking at one of them right now that some of the stuff is up, it's kind of a cool reminder. So maybe moving forward, I'll start to care more about that type of stuff. No, but I do follow a few Instagram accounts that are specifically aimed at that, whether it be a venue like Studio 158 in Connecticut, or New England hardcore flyers. There's a couple pages that I follow, and my friend Tommy Hardcore, who was a roadie for Hatebreed for many years, that actually grew up alongside me, watching me from a young age become who I am. That dude has got a collection. He actually sent me an envelope filled with flyers that I made when I was a teenager. Don't even remember. Promoting my band, promoting Mike D's band, Overcast, promoting Howard's band, Driven. And there are certain flyers where all three of us are on the same bill. So you have Howard's band opening, my band, and then Mike D's band, all in the same show. And he sent me a bunch of these flyers, and I didn't even remember some of that stuff. It's incredible. So there are people that are documenting it that do have videotapes and clips and flyers from it. So it could happen. There's enough resources between our culture of people that it could happen. I think it would be fascinating too, especially the whole pre-metalcore thing. That was a very interesting time of music where you'd go to a show and there'd be 4 or 5 bands on the bill and they all sounded very different, but it really helped birth that genre of music, or whatever you want to call it, that blend of hardcore and metal and sort of odd artistic rock sounding stuff. There was tons of bands that Killswitch stood on their shoulders to develop our style. And I think it would be fascinating to see that too, and to expose the world to all those great bands that just don't get the credit they deserve, I think.